Yeah, let's start with some hoops. He's here. He's ready. He's the Sixers beat writer from the Philadelphia Inquirer, of course. It's Keith Pompey. Hey, Keith, how you doing?
Hey, what's good, man? How you been?
I've been terrific. I've been terrific. Better than the Sixers, in fact, I have been. Speaking of which, yeah, let's talk about them first. Of course, the weird thing for me, anyway, although the season ended way sooner than we'd like, yet again, a first round ouster this time at the hands of the Knicks, it somehow didn't feel quite as horrible as what happened in previous postseasons, usually a second round ouster. Did you have that sense as well, like, that this wasn't as bad as what happened in past years?
Yeah, I think what happened is when Joel Embiid went out in January, when he suffered an injury on January the 30th against the Golden State Warriors, the team lost luster then. And at that point, when he came back, it was like, oh, okay, we're going to try to see what they can do. But I think a lot of people, reality struck when they saw how bad the Sixers were without him for the final basically 2 months of the season. So yeah, it wasn't one of those things where you thought this team had a chance. It was just like, oh, they were a playing team. So reality really hit you for this one.
Mhm. Well, this is going to be one of the most interesting off seasons ever for the Sixers. We know Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey are coming back, of course, but is there anyone else among the other guys on the roster at seasons we know for sure will be back? I mean, I guess Paul Reed and Ricky Council the fourth are both technically under contract. I don't know if Reed's coming back, but pretty much everybody else is a free agent, if I'm not mistaken. So who's coming back? Who's going to play?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, that's the $1 million question because you talked about Paul Reed and Ricky Council the fourth. These are two guys that they can do a lot with. Their contracts. Yeah, you can say, okay, we'll bring you back, but also you can waive them. You don't have to owe them anything, and you can also, especially with Reed, you can trade him, and you know what I mean, and the team can just cut him. So there's a lot of options, but I think there's two players that I will think that's definitely coming back, at least one. Kelly Oubre Jr. I feel like it's going to be one of those things where you look at Kelly. There are some teams who are interested in him, maybe, but at the same time, I feel like the market may not be there as he would like. Just because of some of the off the court incidents that he had, and I think that may, scare some teams away despite how good he played. Another guy that they really want to come back, the guy who's on the top of their list, is Nico Batum. Now, so Nico's a guy who could retire. He can go out in the Olympics, ride off on the sunset, so to speak, or be somewhere closer to to his family in California. But I think the fact that if Joel Embiid really wants him to come back and play with him, and I think if the Sixers have a team that Nico feels like can win a championship, he'll come back. But outside of that, it's tough to say, man. It really is because, I think that you got to try to go out and get this max level player in free agency. And then after that, then you have to build a roster. So I think a lot of stuff is contingent on what they do in free agency.
What about DeAnthony Melton? I think he can certainly play, but he had trouble staying healthy, especially over the second half of this past season. Do they have any interest in bringing Melton back?
They do. But the crazy part about Melton is, like you said, something about the injury. And believe me, I'm a huge DeAnthony Melton fan. But I look at Ben Simmons. I look at and I see how he became injured and he had the back injury, and everybody talks about the shooting, but the back is part of the problem that why he can't get on the floor in Brooklyn. So I think the thing about Melton is if you can get him for the right price and the right amount of years, yeah, you'll bring him back. But aside from that, I think that they'll let other teams overpay for him, so to speak, and then deal with the injury later. So I feel like Melton, he would be a great fit for him, but the back concern is real.
Yeah, back injuries are always scary. They seem to linger and, return. What happened with Buddy Hield? We thought that was going to be such a great addition. He had his moments, including in the final game that he played when he had that amazing first half after having sat the previous two or three games. Why didn't that work out the way we thought it would?
Not a great fit. Not a great fit for especially for the offense. Buddy Hield is he's a volume shooter, right? That's what you he's that type of guy where he'll hoist 8, 9, 10 threes a game. And once Joel came back, once Maxey came back, everybody thought he was going to be able to get shots off, but he wasn't, So I feel like a guy like that he's sort of like a streak shooter, and he's a rhythm shooter as well. And the fact that he wasn't getting a lot of opportunities, he never felt like he was in rhythm, and it just wasn't good. The difference between Buddy Hield and, let's say, JJ Redick, they would bring him off of dribble handoffs, and JJ would get the ball and shoot it. Buddy, they didn't do that. It was more or less the ball would swing, and then he would catch it and shoot it, and that just wasn't that's not who he is. He likes dribbling a little bit and then shooting it, touching the ball, but they needed him to do other things or play a different role. So that's the reason why it didn't work. He's just not a good fit for the offense they were running.
Another trade deadline acquisition was Cam Payne. I kind of liked, his game. Kind of shot the ball weirdly, strange shooting motion, but he gave them a lot of good minutes and seemed to be a good fit at times, backup guard. Do they have interest in returning Cam Payne to the roster?
They do. I mean, the thing about Cam is, he was Mr. Excitement, right? Like you said, weird shooting stroke because he's a lefty. Yeah. But at the same time, he was a great locker room guy. He was a guy who, came in, he sparked the crowd, and he was actually better than what people thought. People thought, like, you look at him and you say he can't get on the floor in Milwaukee. The Phoenix Suns just got rid of him. So you didn't know what really to expect from him. But he was a great addition. I felt like, especially to be the third point guard. That's what he was. He was the third point guard. So, yeah, he's a great addition, a guy who they have interest in.
Now, a lot of people have no interest in bringing Tobias Harris back, and I don't think he's coming back. But Daryl Morey kind of hinted that there was maybe a possibility. He's not coming back, is he?
Nah, he's not going to come back. It's one of let's put it this way. So if the 76ers don't get who they want, right, and they strike out and they can't get a trade, and if Tobias is willing to take a pay cut, then maybe is a chance. But, I feel like the 76ers know that you can't bring him back to Philadelphia. Tobias doesn't want to come back to Philadelphia because, let's keep it 100. Like, all people are going to remember is what he said about crumble cookies. And then they're also going to remember him not scoring a single point in a closeout game, an elimination game. So, nah, I don't think you can bring Tobias Harris back to Philadelphia.
Yeah, I agree. All right, the two guys we know for sure are back, Embiid and Maxey. How would you assess Joel Embiid's performance in the postseason this year? I thought it was, much better than many of his past postseasons. He was playing through injury, of course, yet again. But how do you think Embiid played in that series against the Knicks?
And I think he played well. I feel like he could have been a little bit more in better shape. And I get it. I understand that the knee was bothering him. But it just seemed like he didn't give him much of anything in the fourth quarter at all, right? As in a lot of those games. I felt like because in a lot of it had to do with his conditioning. And I get it. The knee. I get all that. But, in game, what was it? It was game 5 or game 4 where he only scored 1 point and he was shooting threes, and when they had mismatches, I feel like, and I get it, everything we're talking about the knee, but I felt like Joel could have had a presence in the low post. And I felt like he bailed the New York Knicks out. So to me, he has to get his conditioning back together. He really does.
Tyrese Maxey had quite a season, averaged more than 25 points a game, made his first All-Star team, was named the league's most improved player. Does he still have even more upside ahead?
He does. Because, it's weird. Like, when you look at it, Tyrese Maxey, if there's a weakness, is him. And I say this, and I'm not trying to be critical, but as far as running an offense, is he still has to learn how to do that, right? He can show improvement. There's the development and the improvement is, like, if you notice in game 6, it was a lot of times Tyrese was looking for his shot, but he didn't read the floor. He didn't see things. There were guys who were wide open. And I feel like once Tyrese matures and gets that next level and can do things like that, it's going to make him even more unstoppable. And it's going to be more exciting to watch. So, but again, let's look at it for what it is. I mean, they say combo guard, but when they classify you as a combo guard, it's basically you're an undersized two guard who have to handle the ball from time to time. And look at it. He became an all-star this year. So most improved player. But I do believe that the next step is, getting more teammates involved instead of just being tunnel vision and going and trying to score all the time.
How would you grade the job Nick Nurse did in his first year as Sixers coach? I think he may have gotten out-coached in the series against the Knicks, but otherwise, I like Nick. So what would you grade him?
You know what? That's true. I guess I have to give him a B, maybe a B minus. The thing is, and the reason why I'm saying that is because you are correct. Like, he did a phenomenal job during the regular season for what he was handed, right? He did a lot of things, played the different lineups, did this and that. But the reason why I'm gonna give him a B minus overall is because I felt like there was a lot of lack of adjustments in the playoffs. And the biggest lack of adjustment was, with Game 6, Buddy Hield was on fire in that second quarter, and they waited into the fourth quarter to bring him back in when Tobias Harris was struggling. And I felt like, to me, that was the easiest adjustment to make. Like, just say, hey, look, buddy, you know what? Tobias, you're going to start the third quarter, but buddy, we're going to bring you in early. And they didn't do that. There was other opportunities, but other examples of things that I felt like he didn't make adjustments to. But to me, that was probably the biggest and the one that stood out the most. So I have to give him a B minus just because the totality of everything.
Gotcha. All right. Free agents and potential trade targets. If you listen to sports talk radio, I do, you hear names like Mikal Bridges, who wouldn't love him, Paul George, and yes, LeBron James. Any of those guys legitimate possibilities to come to the Sixers? And if not, who?
Paul George is a legitimate one, but the thing is, you got to figure out because this is what's happening in with the Clippers. The Clippers want to offer him 3 years, whatever it is. And from what I'm hearing is Paul wants an extra year. He wants the 4 years. He wants more money, right? So the problem is, yes, Paul George is flirting with the Sixers, but is he just flirting or is he serious? So if he's, because my thing is sometimes you're flirting to get the Clippers jealous, right? So my thing is he serious about this or is he just using the 76ers to get what he wants with the Clippers? Now, outside of that, if he's serious, I think that's the one they can get. LeBron, I find it hard to believe that LeBron is going to leave the Lakers and he's going to leave LA. I think the Lakers, he's doing everything he wants to say for leverage. I think the Lakers are going to do right by him, select his son, do whatever they can so Bronny can play with his father, right? Mikal, I really like Mikal Bridges. I do. But my thing is, if I'm Brooklyn, am I ready to just completely give everything up and then start anew and get rid of the only guy that I have that's worth anything? And I'm not the only one, but you know what I mean, who can be a star. So I don't know about the Mikal one, but the thing about Paul George, that is real. But the only person who really knows how serious it is Paul George, because the Sixers have to wait and the Clippers are going to have to wait.
Of course, Sixers fans remember Mikal Bridges was a Sixer for about 20 minutes, five or so years ago. Yeah. Reflect on that and tell me again, who was he traded for on draft night?
Zaire Smith.
Now, whatever happened to Zaire?
It's crazy. Last summer, he was in the summer league, and before that, I believe he was playing. He was playing in the Big Three. What the Big Three? Not the Big Three. What is it? The summer. Just like where the college kid. Like I forget what it is, but is that tournament is like a single elimination tournament, and what it is it's like former college teams, like players. Like Syracuse has a team for their alumni. Temple has one, and he was playing with the Texas Tech team. I mean, it's sad because, when he left here, you thought that he would go to Detroit and play a little bit. But remember those injuries he had and everything? Yeah. He was out of basketball for a couple of years. So, it's sad because he's a guy that I like him a lot. But I felt like he came out of college too early. And then people forget about the peanut allergy thing and then the injuries. So, he's really hasn't played basketball, real meaningful basketball, since his freshman year in college.
Oh, NBA draft, late June. Sixers have 2 picks, numbers 16 and 41. Anybody there at 16 who can help?
You know what I like Devin Carter. Devin Carter was the Big East Player of the Year out of Providence. I feel like he's a kind of sort of like a DeAnthony Melton mode. He's 22 years old. He's an incredible perimeter defender. He's a great rebounder from the guard position, and he just has that tenacity. He's an older guy. He's 22 years old, and that's what I feel like a team like the Sixers need, because it's not like they're building for the future. They have to win now. So I really like him. I think at 41, it will have to be best player available, right? But I think if Devin Carter is there and if the Sixers keep that pick, that's a guy that I would really like for them to go after. And then if they can't get him, and if this guy is still available, like Isaiah Collier, I think that he's a pretty good young guard who could play well. I think that Khalil Ware, who's a 7-foot center who can shoot the ball, who a shot blocker, is also a pretty good option at that 16 spot. So, yeah, I think they'll have some options. But again, it could be one of those things where they opt to trade that pick in order to make a draft day trade.
NBA's conference finals, Pacers and Celtics, real good game one. Mavs, T-Wolves. How's it all going to play out, Keith?
I think we're going to see Boston against the Timberwolves. I do. I think the home teams are going to win this series. I feel like the Pacers missed out on the opportunity last night. Like, I think if they would have done that, Boston would have been a little bit in trouble. But sometimes it takes some luck to take some things. I think just Boston is just a good team, even without Porzingis, not playing. When I look at the size and the athleticism that and the aggressiveness that the T-Wolves play with, I just feel like they're too good for Dallas. And I like what Luka does. I think Kyrie's great, but I just think that Ant-Man and Anthony Edwards and those defenders that they have, I just think that they're on a mission right now, and they're very rugged, very rugged.
Keith, one of our viewers asks, what would you do if you were Daryl Morey and Elton Brand? Do you go for another max player, maybe that third star, or just, kind of build with a couple of lesser quality guys, but, good off the bench guys and peripheral guys?
Now, here's the thing. So if I'm Daryl Morey and I'm playing this and I'm general manager, and the whole thing is you want to go out and get Paul George, right? That's what you're telling everybody. You want Paul George. If you can't get Paul George, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out there and get 2 or 3 role players, like you say, sign them to smaller deals, that way that you can keep that flexibility, get them off the book. But if you can get Paul George, and I know there's some people who don't like him because he's 34 years old, but if you can get him, get him, and you can have him mesh with the other guys. But if you can't, don't mess around. You just can't be giving out money for the sake of giving it out. And the next thing you know, you're going to set the franchise back. So if I can't get him or someone like that who's great, like Donovan Mitchell or someone, then what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to go get a couple role players and just give them lesser deals for shorter amount of years.
Gotcha. Well, Keith, Bill Furman is not here, but in his honor, I have to throw in a little Eagles and Giants talk. In fact, Bill just texted using our Philly Pressbox radio thingy. He says, hey, before Bill, it's too late, let Keith know that Saquon is now an Eagle. Go Birds. Another guy, Danny. Yo, Keith, Saquon is now an Eagle. People know you're a Giants fan. You got the cup there. So let me ask you, how do you think Saquon is going to do as an Eagle?
You know what? I'm a Saquon fan, a huge Saquon fan. I hope Saquon has a heck of a year. I just hope that he doesn't play well in 2 games. You know what I mean? The thing about Saquon, I'm gonna say this about him. I know a lot of my Giants fans and friends are disappointed that he came there. I blame the Giants. You can't not make a guy an offer. You cannot go through the stuff that he went through all of last season beforehand and then get upset because he goes to the to the Eagles. Like, you messed it up. So for me, I'm happy for Saquon that he was able to get paid. It's just, I just hope that he messes up 2 games. I hope he has a lot of fumbles and he wakes up with cramps in the morning and probably just can't play.
Hey, I know you love to joke around a lot on Facebook and try to get under the skin of your many Eagles fan friends, but seriously, how do you think the NFC East will play out next season? And I'm being serious, Keith.
Oh man, why you got to put me on the spot? You're about to mess up my street cred. It's like, nah. I think the Eagles will win it. I mean, I think when you look at what the Eagles have, I think that Saquon, although I was a big fan of Swift, right? I thought he was a great running back. But when you have Saquon, I think that, I mean, you have elite players at every position. I mean, you look at that wide receiver tandem, and then when you add Dallas Goedert to it, that's like arguably the best in the league. And now you have Saquon, who has a good line, and then he has great receivers and stuff like that. So it's going to open stuff up for him. I don't think you can load the box like they did against the Giants. So I feel like the Giants are going to win. I'm sorry. I feel like the Eagles are going to win. The Cowboys are a little shaky. They really didn't do anything.
Not at all.
But I'm still going to give it to them just because I think the Giants are still a ways away. Right? I hope they surprise me. But I think that the Giants are going to finish 3rd. And then the team formerly known as the Redskins are going to, be one of the worst teams in the league again.
Yeah, I think your Giants are going to be worse than the Commanders. Sorry, pal.
Come on, man.
Hey, last thing. You posted this picture on Facebook yesterday, or X maybe it was, with 10 NBA greats on that picture, and you asked, who is the worst player in this picture? And that is not easy. Now, I would have to say Dwayne Wade. I mean, we're talking about another, great player right there, but man, the other 9 are terrific. What do you say, KP? Who's the worst player in that picture?
You know what? It's funny because I was talking to several of my friends yesterday about this. And at first thought you say Dwayne Wade. And now, but the crazy thing about it is, Dwayne Wade basically, he led the Miami team to the championship. Now, Shaq was there, but he was the guy. And then Dwayne Wade won other titles, with LeBron and Chris Bosh, right? Yep. But when you look at Kevin Durant, and I love Kevin Durant, great player, former MVP, the whole 9, but he was like the finals MVP, but that was Steph Curry's team. Yep. And then he leaves there and he goes to, Brooklyn, and we saw how that was, and then we saw them getting swept. So at first glance, you say Dwayne Wade, but when you do some research, you got to say KD. I hate to say it. A great player, Hall of Famer, but I feel as if that I feel like that KD is the worst one of that group. And
wow.
And that's crazy, but Dwayne Wade, look at what he did. Old Alonzo, Shaq, all these guys, and he was the man. He was the man. They call it Wade County for a reason, I
get you. So, hey, this was fun. We had a good time even without Furman here,
Yeah, man. Tell him he has to stop holding out or hiding out because I had to bring my mug.
I love it. Hey, follow this guy on X and elsewhere, Pompey on Sixers, and read him in the Inquirer. Keith Pompey, great having you on with us once again. Have a great night and a great spring and summer.